like an Austrian. It's like Hugo Boss, VW Bug, Fanta, IBM. It's all about the same. So, marriage counseling. The history of marriage counseling. That's the one. Paul Popenow. If you guys ever look this stuff up, this is for guys who are in marriages or relationships or you want to get dating coaches and shit like that. And everybody's like, oh yeah, why wouldn't you talk to this guy? What's the Gottman School, I think is what they call it for everybody here. It's not really as good as you think it is. It's really not. How do I know this? Well, you look at the guy who invented it. This guy's name's Popenow. He was some American, and he had two passions. One was eugenics, and the other one was eugenics. He was talking about, breeding master race stuff as an American. Interesting enough. And then, oh, dude, they're trying this out in Europe right now. This would be a great little case study. After about the 40s, they did about 20 years of study. And part of it was not just the eugenics aspect biologically, but the eugenics aspect like psychologically and socially. And part of that involved marriage counseling. I remember when I used to work in Edmonton selling fur coats. It was like a brief stint I had as like the original Canadian job, selling fur coats for the Hudson Bay Company as a fur trader. That's like the equivalent of American being a railroad maker. I don't know what's the original American job. Frontiersman? Whatever. Anyways. She was a German chick. She was old, like an older German chick. She was around, and she remembers like her mom used to tell her stories about she had to, when her parents got married, they had to show paperwork that they had at least 6 generations of German blood in them and stuff like that. And they had to talk amongst each other, and then the state would come in and it's like, all right, we need to have a talk about marriage, what you're doing, how you want to have kids, all of this controlling stuff. And it's similar to what the Catholic Church or the Christian Church, like an Austrian, it's like Hugo Boss, VW Bug, Fanta, IBM. It's all about the same. It's all got that same little history. Hypothermia, medical knowledge. I had a podcast with some debate chick about this. She's like, you can't separate things from their morality. You have to make them moral. I'm like, well, all my first aid knowledge about hypothermia kind of came from some evil shit. Should I just ignore that? Well, no, that's different. I'm like, yeah, of course it's different. Because now your argument makes no sense. But that's the point. So be aware of that. Well, how good is it? I don't know. How good was eugenics? Didn't seem to work out too well. Master race lost out to mass production capabilities. Almost like the same as guys dating. Yeah, Planned Parenthood, all that stuff. Yeah, I guess the difference is Ryan is right. At least Hugo Boss looks cool and worked. It relied on a fundamental premise that was really wrong. It's that communication can fix things. And the idea of, and this is like a 18th century kind of 19th century kind of thing anyway. Like the Darwinists believed in that. Phrenologists believed in that. There was a whole lot of pseudoscience back then because people didn't know what they were doing. Kind of like today, but with a lot less lab coats. And they thought, well, if you can just talk about it. But they realized that they didn't realize at the time, people don't do things based on communication. People do things based on their biological imperatives, and their brains mostly exist to post hoc justify it. The hell's that mean? Well, that just means, and this is why you always see girls like, they'll say one thing and they'll do another thing and then they'll argue like, I never said that. It's because at each individual moment, they'd make a decision that's best for them, at least instinctually they believe it is, and then their brain post hoc justifies it. This is why it's not useful to argue with your wife, because you guys aren't arguing about the same thing. She has no memory about the stuff she argued about before, unless it makes her case, and that's good. You never take me out to dinner anymore. What are you talking about? We went out to dinner 2 days ago. Yeah, well, we never go out to dinner anymore. You're like, what the hell? I literally went there. We said this. We did this. You never take me out to dinner. Why don't you love me? Why are you yelling at me? And that's when you realize as a guy, oh, okay. This is why agree and amplify, amuse mastery, cocky funny, and all those things and fogging exists. You never take me out to dinner anymore. Yeah, I can kind of, like, I get it. I get why you'd think that. Probably doesn't feel like it, does it? You never take me out to dinner anymore. Damn right. 1 blowjob per 1 hamburger. That's the deal, madam. Whatever. when you think of marriage counseling today, it's treated as an authority. You know, the courts treat it as an authoritative source. In fact, a lot of people can't get divorced unless in jurisdictions they can't get divorced if they don't go through a round of marriage counseling. So essentially, this non-therapist, he's like the chiropractor of psychotherapy, clinical psychiatry. So, but it's treated as an authority, and that's the problem is now. So, and this is where you're kind of seeing female nature, that like will to power, Machiavellian instinct come out. Because if I can't get divorced unless we go to a marriage counselor, well then I'm just going to go there as a tick in the box activity. Go to the marriage counselor. Oh, I tried everything. Sorry guys, it just didn't work out. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Screw that guy. Let's go and be friends together. That's how it ends up playing out. Marriage counselors know this too. They know it's a grift, but that's the problem, is that you're invested now. You got skin in the game. Imagine this. You go to school for, 6-7 weeks. You draw the turtle or the pirate. You go to DeVry. You get your marriage counseling Gottman certificate. You're saving lives, and you do all these talks, and everybody thanks you for it. And then marriage counselors do say things behind the scenes, which is funny. We had some very revealing marriage counselors on the Married Red Pill back in the day, and the one thing they said was, because everybody's wondering, like, why does marriage counseling not work? And why is it always appealing to the girl? Most guys were noticing. I got in there, and it was basically two people tag teaming me saying I needed to do more dishes, make her more comfortable, because then maybe she'd fuck me more. And then I did that, and then she got mad at me, and then we go back to the counseling, and I'm like, well, maybe try more of this. And there was 2 reasons for that. One, couples that tend to be on the rocks tend to have a girl who's either in charge or so resentful and not on the right on the team of the couple, that they tended to drive whether you went to marriage counseling. Guys don't want to go to marriage counseling. They never do. They were just told you have to. And so if they want repeat business, then yeah, you better appeal to the girl. She's like, I like that marriage counselor. It's like, of course you would. He told you everything was wrong with the husband, and he had to do a bunch of stuff to appease you. Of course you're going to like him. But then she drags him back, and she drags him back. So as a marriage counselor, the ones who appealed to the feminine sensibilities tended to do well business-wise, and the ones that didn't tended to lose business, die off, and go, start a plumbing business, whatever. And a lot of people think, well, that just means they're like evil and insincere and they're lying to you. It's like, no, it's more insidious than that. It's the ones who convince themselves that they're doing good work and appealing to the feminine sensibility, whether by accident or post hoc justification, thrive. So you kind of almost have to select for people who are willing to lie to themselves over this kind of thing. There is some people, though, that are jaded. They understand the game dynamics, and these were the interesting ones. There was like, for a lot of them, they realize that when you can give all of these conflict resolution strategies, in fact, a lot of the stuff that we talk about in No More Mr. Nice Guy and Robert Glover's book is the stuff that marriage counselors use too. They took it from therapy and they applied it to marriage counseling. But what they noticed was when things got emotionally heated, when people started fighting, women got emotional, they threw it all out. I don't care about any of this stuff. And they would go right back to their evolved behavior to yell and nag. Yelling and nagging. Meanwhile, the guy, even though he feels like trepidation, he's walking on eggshells, afraid of his wife's emotions, he wants to avoid conflict, do all this stuff. So he's following the instructions that he was given from the authority to a T. Again, Dad 2.0 has been around for a lot longer than you think. Just like Victorian times, it's never changed. The marriage counselors found out, okay, so if I tell the man to wash more dishes, he'll wash more dishes, whether he feels it or not. If I tell the girl, lose some weight and put out more, she'll, oh yeah, I'll totally do that. But then as soon as it involves someone telling her what to do, she just spurgs out. And so they realized, like, what's the point of giving all this advice to somebody if they're not going to take it? And dude, I feel it. I did consulting on this channel for like the first year. And more often than not, when you're telling somebody things that they can do to improve their life in a measurable way, they won't do it. Not only will they not do it, they will come to you saying they did it. And then when you ask them to describe how they did it, they'll describe the exact opposite. And on top of that, and this is the Catholic confession side of the red pill that absolutely drives me nuts, but it's so damn common. They will do this willingly because they want you to yell at them and call them a piece of shit so that they feel better. I fucked up. He called me a piece of shit. Jesus has forgiven me, but not real Jesus, Dr. Jesus, Esquire. It's this weird Catholic therapy confessional thing where all people want is forgiveness for screwing up. They don't actually want to stop screwing up. They don't want to fix the things that they screwed up on. They don't want to win. They want to feel better. And this is that magic pill stuff that Rich Cooper and Rollo talk about all the time, and you don't want it. You don't want none of it. So you have to make a choice. Do I want to be happy or do I want to be right? And I've totally got the thing mixed up. Usually I tell that to people when I say, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? The point there being, got to hold these women accountable. I'm good, they're not. And that's guys who need to be right, as opposed to just letting this all go and then working out for your best interest to be happy. In this case, flip it on its head. Do you want to be made to feel happy about suffering because, it's not your fault? On one side, it's not your fault. And on the other side, it's, yeah, you were a piece of shit. Either way, some guys wants to feel good or bad about being, subpar. So do you want to be happy or do you want to be right? In this case, don't worry about the counseling, whatever. If you're not going to listen to me when I say how my expectations need to be delivered on a woman that's in my life, then clearly you don't want to be here. Why do you want to fight so hard for a relationship where the other person doesn't want to be there? I would argue the best use of your time then, and this is mostly red-pilled consensus. I think there's some exceptions. For the most part, it was like, if she doesn't want to be here, if she doesn't find me attractive, like that hypergamous best option attractive, fine. I'm going to use you as a training dummy. If I can sleep with you, that's known me like 10 years of me at my worst or however long it's been, and doesn't want to sleep with me and super entitled and thinks you demand this and demand that. If I can game you, I can game anybody. And so guys put in the work to kind of like practice game against a really hard target. And then you go get a second opinion and you maybe go flirt around with the office girls, or you just go out to the bar one day, talk, or you meet some friends that are single and you meet their friends and you find out, oh my God, chicks are throwing it around. It is so much easier than I thought. After the 500th time of seeing it, you can kind of take it for fact. Even if your girl is sincere about the counseling, your marriage is in trouble, and she's like, okay, so this is an authority saying if you go here, we'll fix your thing. Wait, women have covert? Oh yes, women have covert contracts, same as men. The difference is you're self-aware enough to fix yours. Meanwhile, they just kind of go with the feelings. They always trust authorities in that way. So sometimes it is a sincere, we went to marriage counseling, I tried everything and it didn't work. Sometimes it's more cynical, but functionally, it's exactly the same for a guy. So as soon as you hear a girl going to a marriage counselor, it's best to assume that she's already checked out at this point, because there's nothing that he's going to say. There's nothing you can do to outsource authority to a third party and expect that authority to glean off onto you. It just doesn't work. You notice though, and this ties it back to the original point, you don't need a marriage counselor to tell you this shit. You're telling yourself this shit because you've made the work to make yourself your own mental point of origin. You have a worldview you like, you have an outcome you want to achieve, and then you have communication when needed, but it's mostly through your actions that you can do this. Imagine now some dude in a chair telling you how to do this. It's not going to work. As always, everything is dead. Nobody's helping you. You're on your own. So welcome.
79T 2458 Learning Corp. Little Red Riding Hood. Take one.